And then an interesting part in this text is, she gives an afterword, so she allows you to read the text, and then she gives sort of her 2 cents on the text, right? So she doesn't, she allows us as a reader to think through the text on our own terms, and then she gives her own thoughts on it. And so it's pretty, interesting, some of the ideas that she talks about here, where the text arose, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we want to move, that's Bloodchild. Now we want to move to speech sounds. And so, again, I've highlighted parts here. Again, really it's just, close reading, paying attention to details. And then when you sort of, when you start to see sort of the glitch, right, or not the glitch, or, whatever you say, the tweak, the sort of estranged idea, the novum later on in the story, the reading practice is just to go back to the beginning of the story and say, okay, this didn't come out of nowhere. This was put there, early on. I didn't sort of see it. So, science fiction reading and its cognitive estrangement aspect is, is asking people to reread. And oftentimes I think that's why people don't like science fiction as a text, right? Because it requires rereading, and we're trained in our educational system and in our cultural systems to read in a very instrumentalized and informational way, where it's basically one and done. So anyway, story begins here, and so this is operating with the idea of language, right? So a thought experiment. What happens to language, communication, identity when something happens to language, or language is compromised, right? So this is a post-apocalyptic world of some kind. So it's operating in a different way than Bloodchild. Bloodchild is not, it's sort of intimate idea, domestic idea. There's spectacle to it, but it's very sort of, it's spectacular simply because of the science fiction conceits, but the actual scene itself is pretty, normal. Here you find, something which is, you know, similar to all the post-apocalyptic TV shows and films that we have going on around days. And you should keep that in mind. We have a lot of shows like that. Like, why do we have so many shows that are, post-apocalyptic, right? And so, again, is she representing a utopia, a dystopia here, or a type of heterotopia? What's your reading of it would be what you're looking